The shocking truth is most people are addicted to their suffering. You don't suffer because of what happens to you. You suffer because of how you or how your false self interprets what happens to you. Welcome to the Thursday transmission. I'm your host, Kisma. Every week we take 20 minutes to cut through the noise, clear the energy, and help you remember something you never lost, just forgot, your true self within. So today's topic, I believe, is about suffering, right? How anybody remember that? You probably got the notifications, and I know I did some work on it, how to stop suffering, how to not suffer. Okay, good. Interestingly enough, I had a memory show up in my phone about a time when I suffered. I was a little girl and an airplane crashed in our backyard. So let me just pull it up. My It's going to be hard to see, but my siblings sent over, my brother sent over the photo, like, note, it's a Polaroid. This airplane crashed in our backyard when I was like in the fifth grade. And I suffered. I was scared. I was scared, but I'm going to suffer a moment now. Here's the weird thing. So I just got notice from my brother. Of course, he looked up the tail number. This plane is still in operation. I can't believe it. Like that was, I don't even know what year that was. Maybe 1971 or something, 1970. It's a 1956 Cessna, Moore's Aerospace Solutions. How? How is that okay, everyone? I don't know. Let's start with the truth. I always like, we're always speaking truth here as best we can. But the truth that I believe will really change everything, and that is something that sages and saints have been trying to teach us since the beginning of time, is that you have a false self and you have a true self. So your false self is immensely attached, suffers, takes things personally, fights, argues, stubborn. Your false self is driven by ego, by behavior magnets, by your nervous system, by your subconscious, all the thing. Your true self is this self within that knows you are one with universe, one with God, one with source. Your true self knows that you have access to universal intelligence space. Your true self knows this divinity about you, and so your true self is never going to suffer, because why would it? If you knew fully, completely that you were one with source, there would be no reason to suffer. Now, we do our best to get there, right? We do our best to, hey, Daniel, we do our best to get to this place of knowing more and more. We have access. We have access to universal intelligence space, to universe source, etc. But your false self doesn't know that. So you don't suffer because of what happens to you. You suffer because of how you or how your false self interprets what happens to you. I'm going to say that again. You don't suffer because of what happens to you. You suffer because of how your false self, that less enlightened self, reacts or interprets to what is happening to you. And this is a really incredible, incredible truth about your spiritual power. So, one of the most important questions you can ask yourself every day is this: at any given moment in time, are you practicing peace or are you practicing pain? At any given moment, are you practicing peace within or are you practicing pain? Because you might think that, oh, I'm not practicing, it's happening to me. Take that away. If you're now, of course, you're suffering a different way if someone's cutting off your arm, right? I'm talking about this state that we allow ourselves to go into, this agitation, this chaos. The event I'm at made a really good statement that with all the chaos in the world, you have to be adaptable. And in our world here at Illumination Academy, being adaptable means you're going inward. You're accessing the highest part of you. And so that means you would be practicing peace. But the shocking truth is most people are addicted to their suffering. I know it sounds crazy, but pause and think about it. You think you want more peace, but oftentimes you might feed on friction. Think about the little dopamine hits you get when something goes wrong or when there's a story or there's drama, and you get to regurgitate that drama to someone else, and all of a sudden you get a dopamine hit, or you get to fix a problem, or you get to fix somebody else's problem. And that's true. There is pain, but suffering is going to be your addiction to this drama. It's a state, right? So people might think they want peace, but they feed on friction and they replay old wounds because it gives what? The ego identity. So if you're practicing pain and suffering, you're giving your ego identity. If you're practicing peace, there's a release of the ego and a centering to the true self. So here's another question. Who would you be if you released or stopped telling the story that keeps you suffering? Or who would you be if you let go of the story that makes you suffer the most? And you might be like, no, I'm not. Think about it. Do you ever say, I'm not enough? I don't have enough. I'm not good enough. Do you ever say things like, well, the world, it's just never works out for me. Things don't work out. Things are easier for others. Da 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 da. Those are stories that have become an identity and do cause suffering because it is against your true self. So rather than look at suffering as pain, which it is, and I'm not talking about the physical pain, but emotional, mental, and can move into create physical. But let's look at suffering as a different way, as a replay of the mental resistance that we encounter. So suffering is like this mental replay of resistance. It's the ego's need to control the uncontrollable. And so if you look at sort of an illusion of control that creates suffering, it could be if I can fix this, I'll be safe. If I can do this, then I'll feel like that. So there's an attachment to an event outside of you, and then it's always in the future. If I can do this, then I'll be safe, then I'll be happy, then I'll be healthy. There's also the illusion of fairness. It just shouldn't have happened to me. How many times, like, why did this happen to me? This is a normal human experience, but I want you to look at it differently because when you're present to the normal human experience, you then start to rise above it. We're not really looking here at Thursday Transmission to live in a normal human experience. We're here to transcend it so that we're accessing our spiritual power. So illusion of control, illusion of fairness, the illusion of identity. This suffering defines who I am. It gives you something, or the pain defines who I am. But each illusion ties the mind to the past and keeps it out of the present and the presence, where the point of power is in the present moment. And this present moment, where the point of power exists, is where healing lives. So I think you're starting to see that there is past events, things tethered to the past that create this suffering, and we stay attached to it because we have formed an identity. And it might be that the identity is formed in, oh, I just have to work really, really hard. Yet the effect of that work really, really hard, never be enough is suffering. That's when you wake up late at night and you wonder, why doesn't this happen for me? So anytime you can release that old identity, remember, we can't build a new life, a new career, a new relationship, a new business with an old identity. The change is always within. And Vernon Howard, a great teacher from the 1950s, said the false self, I think 50s to 70s, he said the false self cannot stop suffering, it can only explain it. But when you step into the true self, the suffering just dissolves. because you're not attached to things being a certain way. When you're in your true self, you're not attached to people being a certain way. We know through the universal laws that resistance magnifies what you resist, right? So what you resist persists. So when you stop, think about this, everyone, when you stop identifying with the one who suffers, and I want you to think about the different creative, sneaky ways we talk about suffering. We're like, no, I don't suffer. But you might be screaming at your checkbook, or you might be delaying doing something that you really want because you've told yourself you can't afford it, or you pull back in a relationship because they're not treating you exactly the way you want. Those are all going to create states of suffering because they're coming from your false self. So when you stop identifying with the one who suffers, you dissolve the mechanism of suffering itself. And this is really the law of non-resistance in action. So when someone criticizes you, the ego will interpret it as an attack. But your higher self, your true self, sees it as neutral data, right? Suffering stops when you stop personalizing what's happening in front of you, when you stop personalizing the lesson. So being this massive objectivity, this heightened state of objectivity of your true self will observe criticism, observe negativity, see people doing things that don't make sense, but it isn't attached. It doesn't want it to be different because it already sees truth everywhere, meaning your true self is just going to see the true self in every other person. You just see if someone's attacking you, you understand. I don't mean physically attack, right? If someone's criticizing you, you understand they're suffering. You understand they're actually criticizing themselves. If someone's coming at you really hard, you understand they're frustrated, they're agitated. You can focus on that, or you can find that peace in the moment for yourself. Is this landing, everyone? Do you see where, when you desperately or even a little bit want something or someone to be different, you're agitated if they're not? You want this to be different. You want your spouse to be different. You want one of your team members or coworkers to be different. And if they're not, you suffer. Now, that's different from saying, wow, I can see the potential. This is where I would love, right? This is my wish for my spouse. This is my wish for my client or team member. It's not that we don't desire people to grow, but there's a difference between desiring people to grow and elevate, because that is the principle of life force expansion. That's them recognizing their divine self. That's different from they need to be this way because I think so. The I think so, I want is this attached possessiveness over somebody else, over a situation, which means if you don't get it, you're uncomfortable, you're suffering. However, you can desire something, but be in your true self, be aligned, and it doesn't bother you if it doesn't happen. You find a different way. You find a different course. It's not the be all and the end all, because there's always different lifelines and opportunities and things to jump on. But when it has to be a certain way and you need it, and we're seeing this everywhere. We're seeing how people are arguing with one another over politics because you want that person to see your side, but interestingly enough, you can't see their side. So it's like this duality thing that's kind of hilarious. They have to see my side. I'm right, but you can't see any part of their side. And the really cool thing about politics, it gives an extreme example of what can happen. So the more that you find this centered and you're practicing peace and you see things, you see people more than the visible, right? You see beyond their eyes, you hear more than what they're saying. And the more that you release things needing to be a certain way, then you're calm. And this is important, everyone, because if you're in the suffering state, you will manifest more suffering. It's a vibrational existence. If you're in the chaos, if you're in the spin, if you're in the agitation, you will continue to attract more things to be agitated about. When you practice peace, and Vernon Howard talks about this in a really cool way, he's like, I just don't care. I don't care. That doesn't mean you don't care if somebody is like, it's, you know what I mean? But it's like, I don't care. I don't care. Think about that. If you spent 48 hours, I don't care, and you focused on your own true self and you focused on practicing peace, doesn't mean you don't take necessary action. It doesn't mean that you don't show up in a certain way, but there's a let go of attachment. That is a state of non-suffering. Exactly what is your state of being? So let's look, let's think about a way of finding this inner peace or inner kind of liberation from the suffering, because definitely if you're suffering, you're shackled. When you let go of suffering, especially as an identity, you're in liberation. So, one of the biggest pieces, obviously, is awareness. And I don't like, we hear this word so much, aware, but really think, what does awareness mean? You're paying attention, you're present, you're not living from robotic thoughts day to day. You are aware. You have self-awareness, you have situational awareness. So, when you have awareness, you can catch the moment suffering begins. And then you can give it a name. This is a thought, maybe about pain, but it's not the pain itself. This is a thought about what I want, but I don't need it to survive. Then you move into detachment. Detachment is a very high spiritual quality. It's so phenomenal. And to detach from this, you can breathe into the body, like really fill the body. Try that now. Just like breathe in. If you're feeling suffering in a certain place of your body, breathe into that. Breathe into where you think the suffering sits. And then ask yourself, who is watching this feeling? Who is experiencing this feeling? And if you're experiencing this suffering, that's your false self. However, you're watching, you're observing, your awareness is your true self. And the moment you have awareness, the moment you're observing something, you're able to pull it outside of you. And then I love the law of forgiveness in so many ways because forgiveness is like, it's a release. So you can say, I release the need to suffer over this. I release my attachment. I let go. I'm going to just completely let go. When you let go, when you release, it's like that law of forgiveness is resetting the energy to what? Neutral. And the law of non-resistance restores the flow. So law of forgiveness resets the energy to neutral. Neutral is a beautiful energy. It's like you're not attached either way. And then law of non-resistance, you're in flow. And I think this is one of the most powerful statements. Jot this down. It's again by Vernon Howard. He said, when you stop cooperating with your suffering, it dies of neglect. Oh, it's such a stinger, right? I mean, because you can see the moment you look at that, you can see immediately, I have cooperated with my suffering. I've poured into it. I've made it a bigger deal. I've called someone and talked about it. But the moment we stop cooperating with it, it dies of neglect. Remember, where you put your attention, that's where energy goes. So if the attention goes back towards, there's a true self within me, there's a true self that's one with God or one with the universe, and you start to turn your focus and attention back into the true self, nothing else matters. And you're hearing this now. There's some really beautiful beings on the planet that have created a lot of success, done a lot of things. Listen to Rick Rubin. He's one of them, creative genius, where it's like, what really matters is what is your experience day to day? What's your vibration? What's your emotion? How are you showing up in life? Find happiness before the thing that you think is going to give you happiness shows up. Because if you're relying on always having this thing or this event for your happiness, you're suffering. Because in this moment, you're not truly happy and you're chasing something, which means it's going to keep moving ahead of you. So here's what you can write down. Suffering thrives on attention. Withdraw the attention and it dissolves. Peace isn't earned, it's remembered. You don't need to earn peace, anyone. You just need to remember. And I would say the deeper element of work you can do this week is ask yourself, where in your life do you secretly feed your suffering? And who would you become if that suffering no longer defined you? If those stories no longer defined you? If, like we're talking about in Ashram and Prosperity Code, you ripped off the mask and your true self is what is left. Life would be pretty darn awesome. So that is our Thursday transmission, everyone. It is amazing to see you here as always. If you would like support with releasing the suffering, having this adaptability and calm in a very chaotic world, just pop in support, type in calm, whatever it is, or reply to our replay email. We have a lot of cool things happening, and we would love to support you. All right, everyone, you have a beautiful rest of your evening and sending you a big hug. Namaste. Want the exact system I use to coach myself through any challenge? Click below to learn my self-coaching method, the framework that turns every obstacle into a breakthrough without needing anyone else.